Hello everyone. Welcome to Slurp Knowledge, a channel where we share health and science knowledge in short, easy-to-digest videos, just like instant noodles for your brain. Please note the knowledge in this video is gathered from various scientific sources. If you have any ideas, corrections, or thoughts to add, feel free to leave a comment below. There is something interesting that few people notice. We usually only listen to our body when it hurts, when it's exhausted, when it's forced to speak up loudly. Most of the time, the body works quietly, adjusting, adapting, as if it doesn't need our attention at all. Everything begins with a very small moment. One morning you wake up, open your eyes, and feel that you're not quite the same as yesterday. There's no major event, no clear reason. Yet your energy feels low and your emotions feel heavier. If you've ever wondered why everything can feel different after just one night, this is the answer. Because what's happening behind that state is not random. And from this very small moment. Ooh, this part is interesting. You are a slave to hormones. You may not believe it, but it's completely true. Desire, attraction, impulse, everything comes from hormones. Every personal craving is the result of hormonal changes inside the body. In fact, you can observe this yourself. You just haven't paid close attention to it yet. From here, we begin to step into a much bigger story, and that story starts with a system that is almost invisible. To understand what's happening, we need to look deeper inside. Within our bodies exists a system that is quiet, doesn't create obvious movement, yet determines many important things. The endocrine system is a collection of glands scattered throughout the body. These glands release hormones directly into the bloodstream, silently but continuously. No wires, no loud commands. People often say that some things look simple on the outside, but inside is an entire world. And to enter that world, we need to meet the main characters of this story. The central characters of the endocrine system are hormones. Hormones are tiny molecules produced by endocrine glands, each carrying a very specific message. They travel through the bloodstream, searching for the right cells. Not every cell can hear a hormone, only cells with the correct receptors can receive the message. At that very moment, everything changes. But to understand why that change is so powerful, we need to compare hormones to a more familiar form of control. If the nervous system is a shout that makes you react instantly, then the endocrine system is a whisper that lasts. The nervous system handles immediate situations. The endocrine system shapes who you are over time. Just when everything seems settled, the endocrine system quietly adjusts the body's foundation. And to do that, it needs a coordinator. The pituitary gland is very small, hidden deep in the brain, yet it's called the master gland. It doesn't produce every hormone itself, but it sends signals that control other glands. Like a conductor who doesn't play an instrument, the pituitary gland keeps the entire system in rhythm. From this silent coordinator, the story continues downward to more specific glands, starting with the one that sets the pace of life. The thyroid gland determines metabolic speed. When it functions well, the body feels energetic. When it malfunctions, everything becomes either sluggish or overly rushed. The feeling is strange and hard to describe. There's no clear pain, yet you don't feel like yourself anymore. And when the rhythm of life is affected, the body needs a mechanism to balance energy. The pancreas regulates blood sugar using insulin and glucagon. When you eat, insulin acts. When you're hungry, glucagon speaks up. When everything is balanced, you don't even notice the pancreas exists, but when balance is lost, the body starts sending signals, and that's usually when stress appears. At the same time, the adrenal glands release cortisol to help the body cope with stress. Cortisol helps you survive in the short term. But when stress becomes prolonged, cortisol doesn't step back, and this is when the story begins to turn in a different direction. Chronic stress causes hormonal imbalance. Long-term high cortisol suppresses other hormones, disrupts sleep, and destabilizes emotions. No one can stay calm in such conditions, not even the body. And in this state, another important hormone is severely affected. Growth hormone works most actively during deep sleep. It repairs the body and regenerates cells. Lack of sleep doesn't just make you tired, it interrupts the repair process. From sleep, the story expands into the everyday living environment. Food is the raw material for hormone production. A lack of healthy fats reduces sex hormones. Excess sugar disrupts insulin. Environmental chemicals can mimic hormones, confusing endocrine signals. And from the outside world, we return to internal factors. Genes set the hormonal foundation. Puberty is a period of hormonal explosion. Aging gradually reduces hormone levels. No two people have the same hormonal system, but hormones are not governed by biology alone. Emotions are closely tied to hormones. Joy, sadness, and anxiety all come with specific biochemical changes. In that very moment, everything changes, from heart rate to how you see the world. And love is a clear example of this. Oxytocin and dopamine rise when you're in love, creating feelings of bonding and anticipation. People call it emotion, but in reality, hormones are telling their own story. However, not all emotions are pleasant. Why stress makes weight gain easier? Prolonged stress causes the body to store fat as a survival strategy, and we often blame ourselves while the body is simply trying to protect us. To understand this more deeply, we need to look at how hormones remember habits. Hormones remember lifestyle habits, sleep times, eating times, activity levels. Over time, the body automatically repeats what feels familiar. All of this follows a very specific rhythm. Many hormones work on a day-night cycle. Morning is for waking up, evening is for recovery. When this rhythm is disrupted, hormones lose their direction. This becomes most obvious during life transitions. Puberty is the first major surge of the endocrine system. The body changes faster than the mind can adapt. And then, over the years, that rhythm gradually slows. Hormones decline with age. This is not a failure, it's a natural rule. The question is whether the body is supported properly. Fortunately, the body always has self-regulation mechanisms. When hormones are sufficient, production signals decrease. When they are lacking, signals increase. The body always tries to return to balance, but the modern world presents new challenges. Processed foods, blue light, and fast-paced living place pressure on the endocrine system. Many people look for quick solutions. Supplements can help, but they cannot replace lifestyle. Misunderstanding them can deepen imbalance. This leads us to an important truth. Everyone has a unique hormonal profile shaped by genetics and life experience. Comparison rarely brings the right answer. Therefore, the most important thing is learning to listen. Sleeping a little more, eating a little slower, breathing a little deeper. Small changes create big shifts, and from here the story reaches its final chapter. Caring for hormones is not rigid discipline, it is kindness toward yourself, and when we change our perspective, the story changes too. From a very small moment at the beginning, we've traveled through an entire complex system. Each piece fits together into a complete picture. Hormones are not working against you, they reflect how you are living. And understanding this gives us compassion for ourselves. The body keeps adapting, hormones keep adjusting. This story has no clear ending. If you've ever experienced changes without knowing why, perhaps now you understand a little more. And maybe just understanding is enough for things to start changing. The story ends, but the lesson remains. Hormones were never the enemy, they have always been silent companions. And perhaps the next story is your own.